When you get to 1 Samuel chapter 2, Hannah says something there that is so staggering, it just blows your mind. Hannah says, "My heart exults in the Lord." Now, how in the world could Hannah's heart be exulting in the Lord? Hannah had been berated for years on years by Peninnah. And so Hannah goes and pours her heart out to the Lord as she says, "God, will you give me a child? Will you give me a man-child? Will you give me a son? And if you give me a son, which would kind of validate my worth as a wife and as a human being, as a woman, and if you'll just give this to me, Lord, I will give this son back to you for his entire life. Just help take the shame and reproach away from me." God hears her request. And so then Hannah bears a son. She weans the son. She takes the son to the tabernacle, to Eli, and she says, "Here, this boy is for the Lord. I'm giving him into the Lord's service." And she is giving up her only son. And she's had trouble having children. She has not been able to have children. And now she's giving up her son to the Lord at some tender, precious age of like 3 to 5. How could she say, "My heart is exulting in the Lord. My heart is happy in the Lord. My heart is excited and overflowing in abundance in the Lord," when she's going through a terrible portion of her life? She's giving up her child permanently. The beauty that this brings out. I tell you personally, I have been scouring the Bible for years for commands. What does the Bible tell me to do at work? What does the Bible tell me to do with my neighbors? What does the Bible tell me to do with my enemies? What does the Bible tell me to do with my spouse or my children? And there are all sorts of commands to adhere to, and I've been practicing these commands for some time. But Hannah seems to have mastered something here that most of us have yet to master, which is she was looking into the backdrop of what God was doing and how he was present and constantly available to a personal life. Like, what good was Hannah to Israel? One person to all Israel, that God himself would stop and pay attention to her. And in this culture, she was a woman. Why would God stop to hear a woman? And then she was a barren woman, and she was a wife of at least 2 wives. And why would God stop to hear her? See, Hannah had begun to see that God is in the background of everything. He is the life giver for this life, and she had begun to see that, and she said her heart was exulting in the Lord. Now, I have begun to see that in my personal life. I started paying attention to gifts and nice things that come into my life, and the nice things that we get for ourselves, they're nice. And they're material and they function. But when God brings an item into our life, we see that he has been moving. He has been paying attention. He has been planning. He has been thinking of us. And he has been in the backdrop for quite some time preparing for us. And so Hannah saw that with the blessing that God was involved in her personal life and circumstances. And even now, as Samuel was going to be out of her life, that being the case, that God was still there and still present. And she said, "My heart exalts in the Lord. I am beginning to see and find him in all things and in all ways and in all paths. I am beginning to see that the giver of life is present and available for my life."